You see, so often, Felix, we're looking for an enemy. We're taught to do that in America.
Mm.
And it basically serves as a distraction. If I can blame somebody for my ills, I'm not talking about the enemy. I'm talking about the inner me. And that's where my psychology came in.
So not the enemy, the inner me.
The inner me.
All right, guys, I am back in the studio with, man, I really have to pause for a second while I think about who I'm going to introduce today, because he's not only grown up in an environment which did not set him up for success, as the normal person would say, but he looked at it and turned everything around. I actually watched one of his videos where he thanked every single person that helped him to get to where he's at today. And I mean, today he's a clinical psychologist. He has 2 beautiful grandkids, and he's just doing amazing things. And even before we started recording, he gave me a tip that was about marriage and actually having a family. He just said, Felix, remember when you were a dad, you brought kids into your household. They did not bring you into their household. Boom. So I'm not going to take a lot of time. Let's just make it happen. Dr. Brown, welcome to the Superhuman Mindset.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Wow. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to, my viewers, they will be asking, who are you? Who is Dr. Brown?
Well, Felix, it's a little deeper than most would answer. Of course, you referred to me as Dr. Brown, but doctor is what I do. Adolph is who I am. And I think that's a big issue today in our society, Felix, because many people define themselves by what they do as opposed to who they are. So, you know, you have people, I am a professor, I am a dean, I'm a school superintendent, and their self-esteem and their self-value and self-worth, all of that comes from that identity as opposed to who they are. So I always like to make the distinction that doctor is what I do, Adolph is who I am. And Adolph is a kid who grew up in the inner city. Mom and dad divorced when I was 2. Didn't see my dad again until I was 18. My oldest sibling and only brother, Oscar, became my hero. He was murdered when I was 11. So I had lots and lots of turmoil, but I also had a whole lot of people cheering for me. And my reframe was to focus on the good. I tell everyone, it's easy to focus on the dirt, focus on the gold, find the gold in things. So I'm the guy that if I'm having a conversation with you, long before clinical psychology, that I was the person that was looking for the healing in the conversation as opposed to the conflict. I was looking for feeling as opposed to the fight. So, and my grandfather taught me that. I couldn't sit on your show and act as if it just all came to me. My grandfather and grandmother were farmers, and they lived about 3 hours away from us.
Okay.
So initially it started out that when I would get in trouble in the inner city, I would go stay with my grandparents. And my granddad had a wonderful way of helping me think about things by working me to death. So, but he taught me every step of the way, Felix.
Wow.
You know, I would tell people growing up, and he taught me, he said, you know, there may be people that are smarter, there may be people that have more opportunities than you, but don't ever be outworked.
Wow.
And what he was saying, he wasn't just talking it, he lived it. You know, when people, my grandfather, we didn't go in at the same time every day after working on the farm. It was never like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. It was when the work was finished. And that's been my philosophy. The 2 things that we can control as human beings, 2 things, our attitude and our work ethics. No one else has control over those 2 things. We have control over those. No one can determine whether or not my day is going to be great or you know, bitter or better. I have that control, and I also have the control over how hard I'm going to work at the goals that I set. So knowing that those 2 things They've been incredible for me. They've worked for, my 8 children. My wife and I come at different ways with our kids. But the two things that I always wanted my children to understand from a father's perspective, of course, loving and nurturing. But the two things that I wanted them to get, Felix, was being able to manage your emotions and manage your finances.
So, okay, so many things that you've thrown at us, but I want to start from the last ones that you mentioned. 8 children in America.
8 children in America. And I got to tell you that I wish I could tell you, Felix, that I raised my hand and said, I want a large family. It didn't quite happen that way. What ended up happening is that my wife and I met in college. And we met at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. My wife's from New York. I'm from Virginia. We met there, and she was the most beautiful, the most intelligent person I'd ever met. And I just knew I wanted to spend my life with her. And, I used to say that I felt like at first she was out of my league because I was kind of from the bottom, so to speak. And I told her I knew she was rich because she had a dog.
Hey, if you want to come off as you are rich, you better get a dog from
and needless to say, our family started in a very unorthodox way, in a way that neither one of us were proud of. We had our first child. I was a sophomore in college, and my wife was a freshman.
Yep.
So we had our first child, and I love to talk to young people about this because I became a father before I was a man, and with all the challenges that brought. So there is some peace and tranquility in doing it. Kind of, I don't necessarily say the right way, but I do say doing it in such a way that you are mature enough to handle the responsibility.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What does it mean to become a father versus become a man?
Well, the big thing for me was fatherhood is more or less can be a consequence of your actions.
Yep.
Manhood happens, and it's going to happen regardless. And the best way for it to happen in terms of your Ghanaian upbringing, the rite of passage.
Yep.
A rite of passage where there's a village and a support system that says, this is what it means to be a man and to be an honorable man. And these are the things that we're going to put in place as your accountability partners to help you be the best man that you can be.
Yep.
So that's kind of the difference for me was I don't think I know no one in my family wanted me to go to college and become a father
Wow.
They wanted me to go to college and obtain, knowledge and credentials.
Yep.
To lay the foundation to become a man, to become a married man, and then a father. So I did it backwards.
Yep.
So when people, especially young people, tell me, they want my life, I go back and I tell them, I say, well, basically what you see is the highlight reel. Let me share the uncut footage with you. And sometimes my wife's present and she's able to share what that was like for us as young people. I was there on an academic scholarship. I ran track, and my day in college was after my sophomore year, I started working at a psychiatric hospital. So when people think, oh, I did all this stuff like incredibly fast. Well, I couldn't fail. Failure was not an option. I'm now a father. So I'm going to class during the day. I'm going to track practice. At 11 o'clock at night, I went into the hospital, to the psychiatric hospital, Eastern State Mental Health Hospital. I got off at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I did it all over again. So my college experience was not like most people. However, I give it up to my peers back then because I was voted most likely to succeed, and that struck me like, they knew I became a father.
Yep.
But what shocked many of them, I think, was the fact that I didn't give up.
So
And
what was that driving force? Because I mean, from where you were coming from, and I know you shared a little bit about your upbringing, you had every right, permission to pretty much be like, yeah, it is what it is.
exactly. But that wasn't something that the people role modeled for me. I was told at a very young age that I needed my village, but I was also told not to ever wait for anyone to rescue you. Okay. So I was never waiting for Superman. I was never waiting for anyone. I call it self-discipline today. If somebody says, "What are you talking about?" Yep. Well, I'm talking about self-discipline. I'm talking about the ability to do things you don't want to do to get where you want to be.
So let's talk about the not waiting for Superman. And man, you've just, what you keep dropping just gets my mind going ding, ding, ding. But seriously, not waiting for Superman, not waiting for someone to come and rescue you. I mean, we talked about this. I grew up in Ghana, West Africa. I came in when I was in college. Per credit for me was $450 per credit. And I say this with all respect. Every other person that was not international, that was born here, especially my African-American folks, I mean, and then of course my white folks, everybody was paying $150 per credit.
Exactly.
And if they were from, North Dakota or from the neighboring states, it was even a lot cheaper.
Exactly.
So for me to take biology class, which was 5 credits, I had to pay $450 times 5.
Exactly.
They were paying like peanuts as compared to how much I was paying. But my point is, at the end of the day, we would go to class and it was just like, well, a lot of people were, yeah, they are racist, they're black, they think I'm black, they're not. Something is going to have to come and then save me. How come you saw it differently?
Well, I recognize all the ills in our society. If we talk about my dissertation and master's thesis today, you'll see that, I called these things out years before. I mean, we're talking about the police now. My dissertation was African-American males' perception of law enforcement, almost 30 years ago. So these are things that I thought about. These are things that I've actually researched, and the school to prison pipeline, and everything that came out of my research that I wanted to focus on was the self-determination aspect, not what programs can do, not what the government can do, but what you can do. You see, so often, Felix, we're looking for an enemy. We're taught to do that in America. And it basically serves as a distraction. If I can blame somebody for my ills, I'm not talking about the enemy. I'm talking about the inner me. And that's where my psychology came in.
So not the enemy, the inner me.
The inner me. The inner me. And I believe that's the issue in society today. We're bleeding on people who didn't cut us. And the reason we are is because we're carrying stuff with us that we haven't resolved.
Okay,
so everybody.
You're going too fast. Hold on. The problem with society today is we are bleeding from people who did not cut us.
Exactly.
Ooh.
We're bleeding on. We're bleeding on people who didn't cut us. So imagine my father. Okay. As a young person, I was angry about my father not being there.
Yep.
I was angry with him. In school functions, dads were there. At sports activities, people's dads. My family was my grandfather, and ultimately my grandfather called me son. But my dad wasn't there.
Yep.
So I was angry with him. Now, suppose I took that anger out on someone else, which people do all the time. Suppose I took it out on my teachers. Suppose I took it out in my community. Suppose I took it out on getting married and taking it out on my own children. That isn't their issue. That is my issue. They're not the enemy. So we don't do enough, Felix, of looking at the inner me. Everywhere I go, people are talking about, so you see my books here.
Yep.
And this isn't even a fraction of my books, but everybody wants to do a book study.
Yep.
They want to take it out of them and let's look over here. No, the book study. The only book I want people to read first is The Mirror. Read that book, The Mirror. And then people say who the author is. It's you. Read that book first. We're talking about courageous conversations.
Yep.
Guess what? The most courageous conversation anyone will ever have is a conversation with yourself. So that's the kind of thing that keeps me inspired. It keeps me wanting to promote love, light, and insight.
Yep.
Because I recognize, there's systems that are in place that maintain inequities and other isms. But at the end of the day, from a human level, from a very basic human level, we all have the propensity to be better. We just have to want it.
So now that begs the question. So I came in, I see America, and then I see all the great things that can be done, and I'm just going after it. I'm just saying, you know what? It doesn't matter if you're going to charge me $450 per credit. I'm still going to do it. Don't matter. Why is it that everybody else around doesn't see that? Why are they not having that inner me conversation?
Because it's all those things that begin with self that they've neglected. So where's their self-esteem? My self-esteem isn't coming from how much you charge me for a credit. My self-esteem shouldn't be coming from the fact that you call me the N-word. My self-esteem comes from me and those who love me, and I love me, my self-value, my self-discipline, my self-determination. So we skip right over the self. We skip right over the self. And when you skip over the self, you remember I told you the two things I want my children to get from me?
Yep.
I said, manage their emotions. Because if you can manage your emotions, no one will ever control you.
That's right.
No one will ever control you. That's what came out of my dissertation. I came up with the C's for when a person of color is stopped. First, control your emotions. Second, comply. Third, you call for help. And second, you report it. And I forget the C that I collect the data and report it. But the point is, there was something I put in place that had to do with the self.
That's right.
Not waiting for Superman. And I think you do know, well, I think sometimes the government would prefer to be the Superman in America. But you got to remember, if the government becomes that anchor for who you are, for your family and everything else, well, then the government is also deciding for you. The government is also somewhat influencing you. So the self is taken out of that. So I've never ever backed down from challenges. And there were times, Felix, where I wanted to be at a table. I'm like, nobody's inviting me to this. I want to be at that table. I think I can contribute. I think it would be good for my community.
Yep.
And, I said, okay, I'm going to stop begging. I'm going to build my own table. And I built my own tables.
And you wanted to your own tables.
Tables. I got tired once with flying commercially. Like the flights were getting canceled and other things. And guess what? I can fly privately. I do.
Yep.
So I think what happens is sometimes when we're put in a box, that's it. The box.
Someone would tell you, well, Adolph, man, so why fly private? Then what? I mean, there are kids starving in Africa, and you over here trying to. Why would you do that?
Exactly, because the most important thing to me in my life is time with my family. So if I can travel to Fargo, North Dakota, and come back the same day and not miss a baseball game, then guess what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I never, ever was one of those guys when I would hear about pastors doing it back in the day, that they were trying to be extravagant. And no, it's about your time. It's about, it let me know that they were being more reflective than most people, because guess what? Exactly. And at the end of the day, money can be replaced. Material things can be replaced, but you cannot replace your time.
Wow.
Your time is your most valuable asset.
So time is your most valuable asset. That's the only thing we cannot replace. Now,
Exactly.
now let me shift gears and then go, okay, so yeah, sure. I'm the first one out of my family. Now I get to go to college. I have all these accomplishments. You did it. Why wasn't that just enough? You could have built one table. I mean, you were the guy. If we really went back to your neighborhood, you were the man.
Okay. Well, I live 3 blocks from the projects that I grew up in.
Well, there we go. So you could fly first class. That's
right.
okay. Why want more?
It's not wanting more. It's to demonstrate more.
Oh, please. Tell me about that.
Felix, if I brought my wife in on this interview right now, I travel so much. I really don't need a car. She has not allowed me to be without a car because she says that the younger people are looking at me, and they're looking at me, and she says that I am an example for them, that I don't need to be a rapper, an NBA basketball player, or an NFL player to have nice things. So she makes sure that when they look at me, they see that an educated professional citizen can earn those privileges and rights and so on. So that's why I keep doing it. But Felix, I retired once already.
Wow. You retired once already? So everyone is looking at Dr. Adolph, and then they're like, yeah, okay. Sure. Well, he's just that lucky guy. Yeah.
Now they know me. But they know me here. Not luck. They know me. They know I'm from the streets. They know I've been in the streets with them. They know that as a young person I was locked up. They know the uncut footage.
Mm.
So they know that we were all in the same place. We were all in the same boat. It was just that when we all found out there was a hole in the boat, I swam to the shore.
How about those who did not find out there was a hole? Or is it that this is where I want to talk about the mindset. Is it because they just haven't discovered that there's a hole in the boat, or they just don't want to see it?
No, they've discovered that there's a hole, but there's something called learned helplessness. Learned helplessness. And basically what that is, it's really woe is me, a woe is me mentality. And to give you one that I could have taken, oh, my father's not in my life. We went from middle class to the projects. Oh, I hate these projects. They're so violent. Everybody picks on me. My brother was murdered. Oh, now I don't have anybody to look up to. And my grandfather's so hard on me. I could have had a whole lot of woes. And then I'm the first in my family to go to college. And right. I become a father my sophomore year. Yes, woe is me. Woe is me. Guess what? I didn't say woe is me. I said, let's keep it moving. Life happens. And guess what? You make the choices, and then the choices make you. It's simple. We try to sugarcoat it. We try to make it more complex and perplexing. It's not. We make choices, and then the choices make us. At the end of the day, it's about your choices. And we all have free will. Every one of us has free will.
So you have this concept about what is in your backpack.
Yes.
Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, everybody has stuff in their backpack. Everybody that you meet they're carrying something you know nothing about. So I would like people to have a very humbling assertion when they deal with people. So say the fact that you and I connected immediately. Let's go say we didn't. My assertion wouldn't be, what's wrong with this guy? My assertion would be, I wonder what he's carrying in his backpack. And what that assertion does, Felix, it makes me say, what might I be wrong about, as opposed to what's wrong with you? Remember, it goes back, enemy, not the enemy. You're not my enemy. Felix, it works. It works for the powers that be for us to be split. Whether it works for us to hate one another, I think it's more just a distraction. That the more distractions they are, the more people can actually do things that wouldn't necessarily be voted in by the majority. So, but if we looked at ourselves first, I tell people this too, with everything that's going on, every interview that I've done over the last year and a half.
That's right.
I say, as much as we're focused on the White House and the state houses, what if all of us were as focused on our own houses? What kind of world would we be living in?
Yeah, we need to. I think this is the part where we need to take a break and think about it. So, how do we start the conversation about thinking about the inner us? Because you made a great point. If we all continue to look at the White House, and then for my Ghanaian folks, and I know I'm constantly talking about this, if we all could, because everyone thinks, when you go to America, that's it. So America is the White House, right? So if you leave Ghana and you come here, then your life is just golden. How does my kid brother, who is in Ghana right now at 18, how does he start to look at his inner self?
Well, you have to help him. He's your kid brother. So you show him first. You show him what's possible. And you don't sugarcoat it. What happens with the younger generation oftentimes, we steal their challenges. Because say he comes to America, you don't want him to have those bad experiences that you had. You want to smooth it over for him. No, those experiences made you who you are. So we have to stop stealing our children's and our families' challenges. Those help us grow. Those help us know what we're capable of doing. So and I've messed up there a couple of times with my own children, my older ones. And then I realized that I was creating kind of a sense of entitlement kid.
Yep. Okay. So I've been here. I've seen all the hardships. Now what you are telling me is, Felix, you cannot smoothen things out. So basically you're trying to tell me we grow from our challenges, we grow from the pain?
We can grow. Now, I wouldn't want you to, and you would have to know the person you're dealing with.
That's right.
So if your brother's easily overwhelmed, then of course, you want to be nearby for those challenges.
That's right.
But if you know that he's capable, he's resilient, he can get through things, let him experience it, because that will make him a better a soldier, so to speak, in this life that we have that just constantly sends things our way.
Wow.
You know what we have today, and I don't think anybody's talked about this.
Please.
We have a younger generation, with the legalization of marijuana and other things. And regardless of how people feel about that,
that's right.
My take is it's not good for young people.
Yep.
It's not good for the developing brain. But that's a different issue. These young people have never felt a whole lot of pain, Felix, because the minute they feel something, they're going to smoke it away. The minute they feel something, they're going to get a pill. The minute they feel something, there's a remedy for it right away. So you got a society when things shut down and violence went up, people didn't have access to their coping strategies. And so I know what pain feels like. I'm the guy that says feel it and reveal it. Not this toxic positivity where, happy, joy. I'm not that guy. I'm a guy that promotes love, light, and insight. But at the same time, I'm acknowledging that they're going to be valleys. And I'm not telling you to jump right out of the valley. Know why you're in the valley. Feel what it's like in that valley, and then work your way out. Don't get stuck.
So let's talk about that part for a second, because like I have seen this so much, where one time I've forgotten exactly what it was that I was going through. And then I just called my dad and I was like, hey, Dad. So, I think it was with my fiance. And I was like, say, hey, this is what's going on. Da, da, da. And then he goes, yeah, welcome to the life. and I was just like, wait, so you know about this? He goes, yeah. And I'm saying this to say, we don't talk to our parents Even as men, we don't talk to our fathers. We don't talk to our uncles.
You're right.
And they have been through, and I can say you guys have been through so much and have learned so much on this earth that when we come in, I feel like there's just that disconnect where it's not being passed on.
Well, do you think it's by design? Because now we have smart devices and technology that will make the average young person think they're smart as well and smarter than generations that didn't have those devices. So yeah, maybe we're talking about smart knowledge, but what we're not talking about is what you're saying. We're not talking about wisdom, and wisdom comes from elders who have experience dealing and overcoming the very things that you're going to face or may be facing.
That's right. So how do we bridge that gap where
I think
we are talking to our fathers, like they are literally holding our hands? Because I mean, if you look at, this is just my experience, I have not seen one single rich person that will say, oh, my kid, you are 18, so leave my house. I have not seen that.
No.
But then, you know, you go to our low income communities, you go to our poor communities, and it's like, yep, you are 18, out of the house, go now.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, you got to remember when you're dealing with issues of inequity and poverty, is that, well, it's twofold. The one is, if you have someone who's not doing right, I don't think I've ever met a parent who's had a child who's obedient, who's contributing to the household at 18, and they say, you got to go. I think what happens is that the stress that parents or single parents and guardians get from their children determines what happens when that child is 18. So I don't think it's not like a rite of passage where every child in a community of color, you know, gets booted out at 18. You know, but if your child is standing on a street corner and not coming in on time and doing all sorts of illegal types of things, I have seen, you know, I grew up in it. I've seen where parents say, hey, you got to go. You got to go. It's almost as if kind of like a parent feels like they haven't had any influence or control.
Yep.
And then that child becomes 18.
Yep.
And children will tell you, they will say, you can't tell me what to do, I'm 18. So there's some dissonance there that we don't account for. Then you say you haven't seen it in wealthier communities.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean that wealthier communities don't have family dynamics that can be dysfunctional.
True.
What it means is that wealthier families often aren't as stressed about the resources to keep the family going.
So it's the resources that determines how the families act.
It can contribute, definitely. Not we can't say solely.
Okay.
We can say it's correlated. We can say that's definitely. But think about it. Think about how is it that married couples, divorce over finances?
It's a very good question. Resources.
Yep. How is it that children born into couples, you know, they'll say it's, you know, the child, but if you already have limited resources and you bring a child into the situation, then guess what? Your resources are even slimmer.
That's right.
So we don't talk enough about resources, Felix, because at the end of the day, that's really the major divide in America is those who have, those who don't have, and often it's those who have not wanting to share what they have.
So this is where I have questions, because when I look at America, I just see a land full of resources.
Yeah, and I see that too. But you have to also acknowledge that as easy as it would seem to just put your hand out and grab those resources, there are going to be all sorts of obstacles and roadblocks. You're going to have to know, you might have to know the regulations and go study this or study that to get it. But at the end of the day, if you do all those things, you know, they're there for you.
Yeah, and that's what I have. So if you look at the ordinary international student, right, coming from Africa or any part, well, let's just use Africa. Let's stick with Africa because if
Mhm.
their skin is different, it's a little bit different for them. But the ordinary international student coming from Africa into America, they are not starting from that zero. They are really starting from a negative because you have to now go over. Well, you talked about you have to know the regulations, you have to know this. They don't even have the right, let's just say, permission to be able to work or do anything here.
But Felix, remember we started the show talking about
Yes.
self,
Self.
self.
Yes.
So I'm in America,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know my history.
Oh,
How do I find myself?
self.
You're from Africa, and you come in like a king. Your father might even be a king. so you come so you come in with the self-esteem of a giant,
Mm.
of a warrior, where nothing's going to stand in my way. Nothing. I'm going to get everything
And
that's offered here. So that's an edge that my African friends have. I have a good friend. His name is Tony Ashudo.
mm,
He's from Nigeria. He has 101 siblings. His father is a king, and the different wives. But the point is, everyone who came to America
yep.
was college educated.
Wow.
All of his siblings. So when I talk to him, he's aware of all the obstacles in America.
Yep.
But his self-esteem and his determination and his drive, guess what? He came from an intact family where he lives well in Atlanta now,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Atlanta, Georgia. Owns his own limousine company. His wife's a surgeon. His kids, doing wonderful things. But he constantly tells me how he hasn't reached the level of his father.
So the expectations are set so high, and that's exactly what you are talking about.
Yes, yes. What do teachers say all the time? High achievement is framed in high expectation. High achieve. So when you come here, yeah, you started at zero from a understanding perspective, information gathering perspective, but you started at 1,000 from self.
Wow.
To say you're from Ghana, I my ancestry goes back to Togo and Benin, right?
Yep.
But have I been there? Not yet.
Yeah.
So there's still some void for me.
Something that is fulfilled. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think one is better, but as a clinical psychologist,
That's right.
I have to say at the end of the day that you're going to fare better with all the toxicity and the isms in any country because you come from a place where you are already built up.
You've had me take so many seats back. So you also have this concept that talks about how our brains do not help us to think.
Exactly. The
Tell me
brain wasn't
about that.
the brain wasn't designed to help us to think. The brain was actually designed to help us not to have to think. So our brain just basically puts things in categories based on what we've exposed it to. So Felix, I got to come back to you in exposure. As an international student,
That's right.
you've seen more people that look like they could be from Fargo, North Dakota,
Yep.
than people from Fargo, North Dakota have seen of people that look like you. So your brain is more accepting. Your brain doesn't have to ponder and say, where do I put this? For you, it's another human being.
Yep.
For them, if they've only watched, say they don't get out of Fargo and they've
Yep.
only watched television has told them about you, Felix, or the newspaper or social media has told them about you, then they put you in that space. So what's happening? The brain is teaching us without our permission.
Yep.
That's bias. That's called implicit bias. However, Felix, the brain doesn't want to be wrong. And that's called confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. Gotcha.
Right. So So what'll happen, and people don't realize that once the brain puts something in a space, it really wants to keep it there. You're going to have to truly do some reflection, self-reflection and self-correction to move it, actively move it. Because once it's there, have you ever had a debate with someone and you had all your facts together, but that person didn't hear anything you had to say?
Oh yeah. Confirmation.
Okay. They're right. Their brain is only picking up what it already knows.
Yep.
That's it.
Wow. So what are some of the things that we can do daily? Number one, to do introspection.
I believe in silence, Felix, and the world doesn't as much. I'm an introvert, and introversion.
Wait,
yes, I'm a classic. But see, that's what people think. It doesn't mean we're shy. It means nothing about. When Carl Jung talked about introversion, extroversion,
yep.
it meant where you got your energy, how you refueled. So, as an introvert, I love my silence, and I love deep conversations. I could talk with you for hours. It's the how's the weather conversations that bother me. Because if you come in and you ask me how's the weather, I'm going to say, weren't you outside? Didn't you just come in too? So it's that. So I believe silence is golden. I get up earlier than everyone in my family.
Yep.
Because once, at least when they were all here, once they would get up, then I became theirs. So I needed to make sure that for me to be the best dad, for me to be the best husband,
yep.
I needed to also be the best me. So the silence is the first thing. I think the second thing that I would challenge people to do is to just kind of think about your goals. Think about what it is that you want out of life. And don't get trapped, whatever you do when you think about this, don't get trapped on what you do as much as who you are. A lot of people define themselves based on what they do.
Yep.
I mean, I enjoy what I do.
Yep.
I don't even want to do it all the time.
Wow. So, this is so interesting coming from you with how much energy, how much vibrancy you have on stage and how much stage control you have to say, and I don't even enjoy doing it that much. And I like that you brought up, it's like, whoa, okay. And then to hear you are an introvert, but I think you are really hovering around this topic here when you talk about introspection and then knowing, like being in silence and then knowing who you are, which is pretty much what Carl Jung talks about. And I think I have this, like one of the books that kind of talks about that.
Oh, I knew it was going to be a great day.
Do you believe that as humans, as who we are, we really have to spend time to figure out, if we were to put ourselves into vehicles, we really have to figure out what type of vehicle we are? Like, if I'm a Ferrari, then I know I race. If I'm a bus, then I know I carry people with me. Do you really think that's what we're supposed to pay attention to?
I think you're on the right course with it. However, if you're a bus, if you're a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, if you don't have gas, you're not going anywhere. So I would like to make the assertion that we don't talk enough about energy management. So energy management for me, everybody talks about time management.
Yep.
Time management this, time management that. But if you think back to January when people made New Year's resolutions that they're not doing, oftentimes they'll say, oh, I didn't do it, because I didn't have enough time. I work hard and I didn't get to work out. The gym closed. Guess what? We all get the same amount of time. Nobody is so special that they get 25 hours in a day. We all get 24 hours. The issue is, did you have enough energy? So because I believe in energy management, then I knew I was going to be on here with you today.
Yep.
So guess what? I didn't overexert myself too much today. I didn't, have 100 conference calls before I met with you today. I go out of town tomorrow. So, I'm going to be traveling. So I will be able to re-energize, when I cut my grass later today. So the thing is energy management. When I travel, I'll go out of town tomorrow. I'll come back Friday.
That's right.
I'm gonna come back with enough energy for my family.
I
would be a hypocrite to go and bounce all over audiences and jump around stages and then come home and crash.
Yes.
So it's energy management. We don't talk enough. We're energy. That's our essence. Energy management.
Energy. Wow. So I'm hearing this here. We first started talking about time management. I know I'd love for us to talk about financial management, but we jumped onto energy management. Is energy management the same as willpower?
No.
Okay.
Energy management is actually a little bit more along the lines of the me work, the self work.
Self work. Okay.
The self work. So I learned to actually be really good at energy management in college when I worked at 11 p.m. at night and got off at 7 in the morning. I'd take a nap, go to my classes, take another nap, go to classes, go to practice, and do it all over again. So I learned a lot about energy management. And when I realized that I could control my energy like that, that was like, there've been a lot of things that helped me. Of course, my faith, my discipline, self-discipline. But when I learned truly about energy management, that just took me to another level. Because I have a godson, the great singer, right now works with Pharrell Williams. But he had said to me once that he wanted to sing like Beyonce. And I said, well, why don't you? He goes, because I don't have the time that Beyonce has.
Ooh.
And I said, oh, I forgot that Beyonce could buy more hours in a day. And it caught him like a ton of bricks. I said, what are you doing with your energy? How are you wasting your energy that the things that are most important to you aren't getting done? Or the better question to you is that really what you want to do? Because if it's really what you want to do, wouldn't you make time for it?
Whew. Man, energy management. What are some of the menial things that, and I'm going to be specific with Black people, that we spend a lot of energy on that we don't even know saps our energy?
Looking for the dirt as opposed to the gold.
Okay, we done.
we look for the dirt. And I got to go back that I don't blame us. I mean, granted, we need to be accountable for it. But if that's all you've been exposed to, that's all your brain's going to try to confirm is the bad. It's going to look for the bad. So if you've been exposed to the gold, if you've been exposed to the gold of Accra and you come to this country,
that's all you're going to be thinking of.
And building even more gold because there are more opportunities to do it here. So that's it's what this box has been exposed to, what the brain has been exposed to. And it's so hard to break that confirmation bias. When I talk to young people, it's almost as if they don't think I can be a success because I'm not a rapper. So my wife helps me combat that. Sometimes I'll post the photos of flying on a private jet.
That's right.
Sometimes I wear a watch that she bought me, knowing that it's it's heavy and I don't like wearing it, but I'll wear it so that the young people will see it and I can talk about it.
Hey,
and
but
I can say
the rich woman because she had a dog.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So she understands that the power in perception.
Yep.
So I think if we could I would love for your show to be like a international syndicated show, whereby you exposure. That's the key, exposure. And as an international student, you would have even more advantages. They talk about the student in America that really can navigate and do well in most environments. And that's the child that's been in a military family. They move a lot.
Yep.
they're exposed to a bunch of things, and the child makes friends, makes new friends. Now it can be hard, but that child is learning to navigate. That's the same thing that I think about my international friends, is that they've seen the world when most people have only seen Fargo.
Fargo. Wow.
So yeah.
So I have lots of parents that listen to this. They are first-time dads, first-time moms. What do they do today? Because I think I read that for a kid's brains foundation, I think you're the best person for this question. It actually, you have from 0 to 7 to set that foundation. So, and then our faith tells us, teach the child the way he should grow so that when he grows, he will not depart from it. What are some
when he grows older?
When he grows older. Gotcha.
That's the part that we forget. It's not immediately. It's when that child gets older, they won't depart. Doesn't even mean we'll see it. It's just, it's in that child and it will blossom.
Wow.
So I would give you three things for children.
Please
three things. And it doesn't require a lot of resources. And that's why I have these three things for exposure. Okay. Read. You got that? The first one?
Read.
Read. The second one? Read. The third one? Read.
Wow. Okay. Read. How does that affect the tree is in the seed?
Because you're exposing that child through literature. You're teaching that child that I've never been to Africa, but when my friends from Africa describe it to me, I see it. When I read about it, I feel it in my bones, in my blood, in my being. Reading. And let me tell you why I say reading. That, I'm not a genius to come up with that. Mm-hmm. My grandfather told me years ago, with only a third grade farm school education, he said there was a saying, and for a lot of sayings, there's truth to it. The saying went, if you want to hide it from a black person,
in the book,
put it in a book. How do you know the laws of the land if you can't read? How do you apply for a job if you can't read? How do you travel? How do you drive and travel if you can't read signs? Read, and the things that it does to the brain.
Wow.
The thing, my grandson cries when a book is over. I have to read. I have to be prepared with my energy management to read at least the book 3 or 4 times when he sits down with me, because I've read to him since he was in my daughter's tummy.
Even in the tummy.
I have a young daughter, my youngest daughter, she has cerebral palsy and hydrocephalus. They told us she wouldn't learn. She told us she wouldn't live. She's a sophomore in Old Dominion University. Guess what? We read to her. We had her read to us. Reading. We don't put enough emphasis on it. Your house, yeah, guess what? I understand that we should have desserts.
Yep.
You can have Timberlands, you can have Nikes and Jordans, but I want you to have books about Nikes and Timberlands as well.
Wow. Dr. Brown, if I don't stop this, we will be here all day.
Well, let's make it happen again.
Yes, please, because we have to come back and talk about how we can take control of our finances, because we all want to build tables and we also want to fly private.
And let me tell you this.
Please.
My grandfather, farmer, 3rd grade farm school education, farm school, all the grade levels are in one room. He said to me, to be wealthy, it's not the money you make, it's the money you keep.
Wow.
And if I bought something,
yep,
you better believe I could buy it 10 times.
10 times.
Because I'm frugal like that.
Wow.
It's not going to deplete anything that I've worked hard and saved. If I buy it, I can buy it 10 times.
Wow. Where can people find you?
They can find me at docspeaks.com, like the doctor speaks. And if they want conversations like we're having right now, I recently started a Patreon at patreon.com/docspeaks, where the audience actually tells me what they want to talk about. And they bring the topics, and for an hour or so, I'm the mental mechanic.
Wow. So one last question that I ask every one of my guests: what is your superpower?
My superpower, I would say, and I don't know if it even would qualify in a worldly sense as a superpower, but the fact that I'm a child of God. I'm one of his many children.
Wow. Wow. All right, folks. Dr. Brown has done it. Man, if this touched you, and I know it did, hit that subscribe button and then send it over to 5 of your friends who need to hear this. Because, guys, I just cannot even fathom every single thing that we have talked about today. It's just like, whoa. I'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you for joining the Superhuman Mindset. Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Felix.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Wow.
I'm honored.